Hi, dear viewers. Welcome back to Kingdom Principles with Reverend Dr. Plug. Today, let's look at a story in First Kings chapter 20 to 22, the story of King Ahab. Now, King Ahab was king of Israel, and he was a wicked king. He was the husband of Jezebel, that wicked queen, and he did a lot of evil in the Lord's eyes. Now, let's focus on his battle against the Syrians. Now, the Syrians had come to fight Israel with several other kings that they had gathered together, a vast multitude. And the Lord sent a prophet to tell King Ahab that the Lord will deliver him, that Israel will have the victory against that vast multitude. And indeed, the Lord used the young soldiers, the young leaders of the army, and delivered the people of Israel. The Lord's word came true. And the Lord sent the prophet to warn Ahab again that this king Ben Hadad of Syria will muster up another army and come back to fight you in the spring of the following year. So get ready. King Ahab listened, he got ready, and yes, the king of Syria mustered another army and came to fight him. And the prophet came again and said, the Lord will deliver these Syrians into your hand. You will be victorious, because the Syrians had been saying, oh, the first time the Israelites won because we fought on the hills and their gods are gods of the hills. But this time we'll fight in the valley and we shall win, because their gods are not gods of the valley. So the Lord sent a message saying, I will give the victory. I will show these Syrians that I am God, God of the hills, of the valleys, God of the whole earth, God of the whole universe. So this was God's battle, and God sent King Ahab. And King Ahab and his smaller team won, his smaller army won the battle by the grace of God. God was helping them against the larger, vaster army of the Syrians. And the King Ben Hadad, fled into an inner room somewhere and hid, and then sent some of his men to go and see if the king would have mercy, and said, the king of Syria is still alive. And King Ahab said, oh, my brother, let him come. And they brought him and he spared his life. Now, the Lord had destined for the king of Syria to die, because that was the will of the Lord, and they had tried God. God had his plans and his purposes. He knew why. But the king of Israel spared his life. And so the prophet came back and said to him, gave him a prophecy that because you have disobeyed the voice of God, you have spared this man's life. It will be your life for his, your people for his people. Now let us skip to 1 Kings 22. This was in 1 Kings chapter 20. 3 years later, um, Syria and Israel went back into battle. So the King Ahab, said, oh, who will help me to get, he wanted to fight the Syrians to get Ramoth Gilead back from them, a town. And so he invited King Jehoshaphat of Judah to join him in the war. And he joined him, but that war was supposed to be his downfall. And he disguised as a regular soldier, not as the king, and asked the king of Judah to dress up in his kingly robes so that they wouldn't chase after King Ahab, who was dressed as if he was just a regular soldier. However, the purposes of God came to pass, and during the battle, a Syrian archer or soldier drew his bow and arrow and struck the king of Israel, just by chance between the blades of his armor, and he was wounded and he bled in his chariot till he died. So the word of the Lord came to pass. The lesson here is that we shouldn't think of ourselves wiser, more loving, more understanding than God. We need to obey the voice of the Lord. The word that the prophet gave King Ahab is something that we can learn for ourselves. Because he disobeyed the Lord and spared the king of Syria, he went back into battle and died in that battle 3 years later with Syria. The Lord said it will be your life for his life. You spared the person who I had purposed to die. So it will be your life for his life, your people for his people. Later on, because of all his evil, the house of King Ahab was wiped out. His after him, his son who ruled in the time of his son, Jezebel, his wife, and all his line was wiped out because of all the evil he had done. So let us learn to listen to the voice of God. Let us not think ourselves more loving, wiser than God. God sees the end from the beginning. When he says, I have determined that this person must go, God knows why he's saying it. Don't think of yourself more righteous than God. I hope this blesses you. I hope we learn to trust God. Be blessed.